Suave afternoon, Suave afternoon. This is Brother Suave, your mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening on-air personality, life coach, psychotherapist, author, and creator. Hope you guys having a suave day.
Yeah, and with that, let's commence the pay.
Okay, I'm so swavelous, you so swavelous.
Together we can fix the trauma that's befallen us.
Divine social interactions remains marvelous.
Mind-blowing, swavelicious talk, higher consciousness. But think, let not your heart speed trouble, Dr. Brother Suave.
Divine light getting dull.
Greetings and suave evening, champions. This is Dr. Brother Suave, your mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening on-air personality, life coach, psychotherapist, author, creator, and divine social therapist, and your host of Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave. Listen, this is season 5, episode 7. Wow, on this beautiful, hot Wednesday, August 16th, 2023. Listen, I'm so happy. I'm so blessed to be able to see a day I've never seen before. Another day to get it right. Another day to tell friends and family I love them. Those who I respect, I love them. And anybody who's tuning in tonight, just want to let you know I love you. And so I'm just so excited about tonight. Being able to have gratitude, being able to have a comeback, being able to just be able to do the things that you can do in life through gratitude and appreciation, so I'm just really, really happy to be able to discuss tonight's topic. And besides tonight's topic, we're going to be discussing how believing in yourself and following through, just remember following through after having an experience in trauma, hardships, or just life, you can actually still have a breakthrough. You can become the best and a better version of yourself. And you can also become a shero or a hero. So tonight, my very special guest, she's going to share her journey of becoming a shero, because in my eyes and many eyes, she's definitely a shero. So with my very limited time meeting her and interacting with her, and I just remember, I think we met about 3 or 4 years ago. And one thing I did notice about her was her strength. Had no idea she was into mixed martial arts. Had no idea, but I did see a strength of a lion. And speaking of lion, I started to follow her. And again, when I said I met her through Circle of Champions Worldwide, and that was founded by the brilliant and talented Miss Sade Namor. And so, like I said, I would always see her post, and it always had a lion attached to it. And that says a lot about strength. It says a lot about courage. And so I just would always like this, follow it and not like it, but love it. And so one of the things I'm going to just share about her post that's so powerful is one of them says, it's going to be hard, but hard doesn't mean impossible. Man, that's so incredible to me, because sometimes we have challenges in life and it seems like it's completely impossible based on our rational thinking. But again, the Lord doesn't put us through things we can't deal with. And so it just says a lot about her and her mentality. And the second one says strength, talks about strength. Sometimes we're tested not to show our weaknesses, but to discover our strength. And again, sometimes, we're going through these tests in life, and it's not to see how strong, see how weak we are, but it's actually seeing how we can discover how strong we are, that we have the ability to overcome. And I'm just really appreciative. And I'm sorry, I just got to say one more. And this last one, it says, to make a difference in someone's life, you don't have to be brilliant. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to be beautiful. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to care. And this is one of the things I'm always telling everybody, call and check on people, because you never know what they're going through. Sometimes just hearing their voice can make a difference in one's life. They can have suicidal ideation, passive death wishes. But sometimes when they hear that makes a difference. And that's why I always say, don't let technology replace interpersonal communications and hearing the voice and intimacy of someone else. So just a little message that I want to say coming from Dr. Brother Suave. So what I'm going to do, I'm just pretty much talking too much. So I'm getting a little carried away. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to stop and just allow her to introduce herself because I'm super excited. So without further ado, let's introduce the wonderful and talented and brilliant and courageous Miss Igdalia Medina.
Hi, thank you.
Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy and so excited to get this thing started because, I was talking too much. So I was like, I didn't tell about her brilliance, her greatness, and how she got her journey. So what I'm going to ask you to do, just tell the people a little bit about yourself, and I don't have to do it.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm not really much to talk about myself. I like helping others and stuff like that, and I like being behind the scenes. But I'm a mother.
Yes.
I'm a wife. I'm a sister.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal in life is just to help people through their journey, to remind them of their purpose. That's pretty much all, I guess.
Oh no, but it's okay. As we continue to dialogue and engage, the listening audience is definitely going to find some things about you.
Yeah.
Because again, a couple of weeks ago, I found out some things about we happen to know some of the same people.
Oh yes.
Hey, listen, listen. There's a lot more to her. She may not tell you. She got skills. She got skills. And it's crazy. Speaking of skills, listen. She has the skills. She happens to know the two people that we talked about. I know you guys familiar with mixed martial arts, and we all familiar with the Gracie family. And again, we happen to know the same people. It was one of the Gracies, Hanzo Gracie Jr. We happen to know if anybody know about martial arts. It's a very, very famous family, And I remember fighting against them, and competing against them, and training with them. And it's just funny, small world. We're talking about 30 years ago, and here we are meeting each other through Circle of Champions, and happen to have some things in common. In addition to another person, Marcus Silveira, who happens to be known as Conan. And it's just a funny thing. And again, if you guys know mixed martial arts, this dude was huge, tattooed all over, and was a monster, a beast out there in the mixed martial art world. And so again, you don't be that close around the mixed martial arts if you don't have the skills yourself. So I really, 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 I'm just excited. So listen, being a champion that you are, thank you. How you doing, Mr. Chapman? And thank you, Ms. Ernestine. I appreciate you guys for showing up. And so again, being a champion that you are, I want to know a little bit about when you do these posts, and everything seems to have a lion theme on it. Tell me, why do you seem to always have these lions? Because I see you as a courageous person. I saw that when we met, and we didn't have that much interaction, but I saw that strength. And I just don't believe it's a coincidence that every time you post something, not every time, but the majority of your posts has something to do with strength and that lion image. Tell us a little bit about that.
I love lions.
Okay.
From growing up, they talk about, the strength of lions. They talk about how, the three lions of Judea, so there's always some background, some history behind it, but we always think, and it's a reminder, like there's the king of the jungle is a lion, right? And everybody thinks that you need to make a stand, that you need to do this. No, a lion is there, and they're quiet until it's time for them to do what they need to do. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to go around telling people who you are. People will know who you are just by the way you carry yourself, just by the way you present yourself, just by the way you handle yourself. And it just happens that even people that I work with, different promotions, they also have lions. So it's just, I guess, a calling.
It's a calling. Okay, because sometimes, there are sometimes people who are passive and very shy, and sometimes they have an experience in life that brings out the lion. because the
Yeah.
lion is always there. It's just that sometimes when the issues with self-esteem or shyness or
Hmm.
insecurities, the physical ability is always there. But again, things start in the mind, and those insecurities and issues of shame
Hmm.
or just fear can suppress the lion that's in all of us. If you look
Yeah.
at,
Sometimes we don't want the lion to come out,
yes,
so it's like we have to know the control. We know we need to stay calm. Like my saying is always stay calm, stay focused, and remember your why. Because
yes,
we can't do much in life if we're not calm and if we're not focused. And then sometimes we can be calm and we can be focused, but we don't understand what our why is. Or sometimes we can't be calm and we can't be focused until we know what our why is. So whatever your why is, that will motivate you to do those other stuff that you need to do in life. But it's a combination. You need to have it all, because
yes,
if not, it's an imbalance.
absolutely. And again, I'm glad you said that balance because a lot of times, in my definition of perfect, and a lot of people say no one's perfect. Well, my SWAT philosophy is I created perfect in a term of balance.
Mhm.
You know, balance, and balance keeps that scale balanced. And so, therefore, if it wasn't balanced, you either
Mhm.
go to the right or you either go to the left. And so, I believe in having that balance. And I'm glad that you mentioned why, because a lot of times, again, people don't know that why.
Oh
And
yeah.
again, when we talked about crisis and being able to overcome, sometimes people have crisis. Sometimes people have traumatic experiences. Sometimes people can go to an event or a function or a sermon or a speech or a lecture, and that will stimulate the lion in them,
Mhm.
also help them identify with their why.
Mhm.
So that being said, as I presented, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. So,
Mhm.
was it anything about in your journey of life and personal growth and development um, that triggered your why, or was anything that occurred in your life, either traumatic or some type of crisis, that inspired you to strive for greatness?
Yes, I have two different situations in my life
Okay.
that had really impacted my life.
Okay.
And it's important that no matter what it is, um, we have to know what our why is.
Uh-huh.
And in both situations, my why was my son.
Okay.
He was the reason that I needed to take that step forward. Because, everybody says, when you go through a certain situation in life, this is what I would do, and this is what I would do. And, I would do certain things. But I always need to keep in mind of my son. Sometimes if it were based on me, I probably would have acted completely different. And the outcomes would have been completely different. But because I had a purpose and I had my why and I knew who it was my son, I needed to make sure that everything I did was calculated in a way that my son and I would be safe. And I know if he wasn't around, I probably wouldn't be here.
Mm, mm, mm. Yes. And again, that's that I appreciate that because a lot of times, when you don't understand your why, you can make some decisions that's not in the best interest of the future yourself as well as your children. But sometimes when you're learning like triage, it appears to me that you triage the situation. You prioritize what was the number one priority.
Mhm.
Because again, had you not been there for him at that moment,
Mhm.
you wouldn't have been able to be here for him for the future. And a lot of times, we have to sometimes, and I'm a person who believe in leading by example, but
Mhm.
I also believe in sometimes that's why you hear parents saying, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know my why. I didn't understand life. But when I had a child, it gave me an entirely different perspective, a new perspective, so to speak, on why. And so people start prioritizing, saying, listen, I got to do this because I have an obligation
Mhm.
to provide. And saying that, I may be off topic, but the thing is, I think that when you prioritize your children and leading by example, I believe that you need to have more critical thinking skills and self
Mhm.
awareness. Because what happens is, if you don't, you continue that toxic behavior, you continue that counterproductive behavior, you continue those behaviors that not in the best interest, not only yourself mentally, spiritually, socially, economically, but your child sees that
Hmm.
and they mimic that behavior. And this is where it comes to generational curses, patterns of repetitions, and insanity cycle. So therefore, when you have that self-awareness and realize that you're doing something that's not in the best interest of your child because they are mimicking and observing your behavior, you have to really have this paradigm switch and say, you know what, I got to do something different.
Hmm.
Because if I don't, this child's going to pick up so many bad habits. The same thing, when you know how people always say, "Do as I say, not
Not
as
as
I
I do.
do." That doesn't make sense because they're going to watch what you do. They're not going to process the morality issue. They only going by what they're observing. And sometimes we have to be very aware of what we act, what we say, and what we do because our children will pick it up.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah, but sometimes it's important that when we say, not as I do, it's not just like that simple, in the sense that
Mhm.
sometimes we'll say, like when you talk to a kid and they're like, they're misbehaving or something, and they ask you, but why? Because I said so. No, that's not an answer. You need to tell them the reason why. I remember
Communication.
a friend of mine did that and he yelled at his daughter.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay. And he was like, gonna put her in timeout or ground her. I don't even know what the heck he was gonna do. But I looked at him and I'm like, what just happened? He goes, oh, well, she wasn't listening and she did this. And I'm like, well, did you tell her that she wasn't supposed to do that? Well, no, I didn't. Okay. So you are punishing her for something that she didn't even know that she wasn't supposed to do. I'm like, does that make sense? He goes, oh, well, I guess I didn't think about that. And I'm like, yeah, so you should really think about it. And the next time, speak with her and tell her, you shouldn't be doing this, or and explain the reason why, not just because I said so or because you weren't in the mood to deal with her running
Mm.
around or whatever it is. Kids shouldn't pay for you're having a bad day at work or because whatever, you woke up on the wrong side of the bed. That's not the way it works.
Mm.
And not as I do, if you are a bad relationship, right?
Mhm.
You tell the person, you tell your child, hey, don't, this is what I'm going through. And I am really trying to get out of this situation. So please look at it as things that you shouldn't be doing. Like if this hurts you, if this makes you feel a certain way, pick up on it and focus on that. But understand that I am doing this, because it's a survival mechanism. You have to try to get to the next step. So I think it's important that we always are able to speak clearly so our children can understand.
Okay, great. We have a question. A question is from Mr. Frederick Douglass. He says, "Children are a great why." It says, "What are some other forms of why that can show up?"
Everybody's different. Everybody has that drive. Everybody has that motivation. Some people, it could be their parents. Some people, their why could be not repeating the same cycle of their upbringing. Their why could be just to be there for somebody because somebody else in their life checked out, did
Mm.
their self checkout and they didn't have that person. Like, for instance, I'm a photographer, but the reason I do photography is because I went through a really bad experience in my life. And
Mhm.
I went through a phase that I could only see the bad. I could only see the bad. And then I'm like, you know what? No, I want people to remember the beauty of life, that moment
Mm.
that made them happy, or that moment that they can always look back to. So I would take pictures. That way, whenever somebody is going through something, they can pick up that picture and it reminds them, hey, I remember this day. And then they forget about everything bad. Because if we hold on to the negative, we're never going to be able to push forward. So our why could be anything. Our why could be your child. Your why could be, the future that you want. Your why could be a past that you don't want to relive. Your why can be that person that breaks all of those generational curses that have been in your family. So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily just an object or a person. It's finding what motivates you, finding what inspires you, finding that purpose in your life, because everybody is different. It's not cut and dry. It's not that simple, because I could say, oh, it's my child. Maybe you don't have a child, or maybe your child hurt you and you can't fathom the fact that that's going to be your, you know what I mean? So we're we're all different.
Yes.
And our why is completely different. But the one thing that isn't different is that drive and that inspiration, that desire that it gives you. So regardless of what the why is, it's that feeling that comes with it, that purpose that you have.
Absolutely. Fred, I hope she answered the question. I'm definitely not having anything to say after that. Her answer was absolutely swap amazing. I mean, I'm telling you. So thank you. Thank you. That was some great insight. I'm telling you, man. And you know, it's a funny thing that when you said your reason of getting in photography, I'm thinking about over 30 something years ago when I had to, because they talked about this, the history of photography. It was the most boring class because it wasn't a photography class. It was a history. And I'm like, you know, I just need to fulfill a credit. I'm like, the history of it. And that's the only thing I can remember, like, about the purpose of photography, you know, saying you can take that picture and capture that moment.
Yeah.
It could be like,
Exactly.
about a memory, like, I remember when you see me like this, I was running from that dog, and I remember that dog caught me and hit me on my right ankle, and then, you know, and then I remember that traumatic experience. Now you take me way back to that moment, but it was caught in a moment, and it brings you right back to that moment. And I remember.
No, I want to remind people of the good moments, not the traumas, not the traumas.
But I'm just thinking about, you know, when the facilitator was just talking about the history.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, because I remember that. So that was always implanted as a picture in my head. Oh man, how you doing, Joseph? Thank you. So listen, and so I love how you communicate, because again, you say you believe in inspiring people and your ability to just communicate. And I like when you was talking about and it basically you was talking about parenting and communication, because I believe it's important. The two things in terms of parenting or relationships or anything is communicating and being effective. You just can't say yeah about something, leave it alone. It's important, or don't do this is important, especially when it comes to children. But what happens is these people who are adults who struggle with those levels of communication and things, it means that they didn't have someone to sit down and talk to them. Because the same way as generational curses, it's the same way as generational advances, and every generation should get better. You know, so again, thank you. And again, this is perfect. Children need to know why. So only way they can know why is to communicate in details of why you make, you know, and adults have the ability to manipulate and get their answers, so they don't always have to tell all the intimate details, but it's important to give a foundation, a basis, because you're sitting there doing something, and children are developing. So when you don't communicate to them about what, they sitting there around like this, and guess what? The one thing doesn't stop is time, and time goes. So next thing you know, that child's a 5-year-old, then it's a 10-year-old, then it's a 15-year-old, then it's an adult. And if they never got someone to sit and talk to them, they never understand the why. So what they do is just repeat those same patterns of not communicating and not being clear, and then it affects their relationships as they grow up and become adults. And so I just really went, and I was processing what you were saying. And so what stood out with me is the parenting that you didn't mention, but it still comes in my head, is parenting and communication.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is, we don't know everything in life, and that's okay. So like my son will say something to me and I'm just like, you know what? I don't know, but let's find out. Let's figure it out. Or go ask your uncle, or go ask your cousin, because I know they know the answer. I don't know the answer. So it's important for us to raise our kids to be able to advocate for themselves. And I tell my son all the time, it's like, it's not that I don't want to do it for you. It's that I need to know for sure and believe and understand that you can be self-sufficient, because I am not always going to be there for you. I am not always going to be there at your school or at your job or anywhere that you're at. So I need to know that you're self-sufficient. I need to know that you can take care of yourself. It's not that I don't want to be there, and it's not that I don't want to do anything for you. It's I need to know that if I'm not around, I'm at peace knowing that you can handle yourself. Because you have all these parents that are, you know, what is it? Helicopter parents or whatever it is. There are degrees to that. You know what I mean? And everybody wants to overcompensate, you know, well, I didn't have this and I didn't have that. And that's okay that you didn't have it because it made you aware of the things that maybe you need or don't need or whatever it could be.
Yes.
So learn from it. Don't
Yes.
repeat it. Don't repeat that you're going to keep. You know, so it's like that's an example. Like if your parents didn't know something and that they sheltered you, right?
Mm.
And
Mm.
then now you want to raise your kids to, I want you to do whatever you want, but I'm also going to shelter you. And I want you to do this. But like, you understand that you're creating children that act as if they're bipolar, but they're not. And it's not even that they have that disease. It's they are repeating these back and forth situations that are not fair to them. Like
It's not.
well, mom just told me this. Well, dad just told me this, but my teacher said this. And now they're playing ping pong. Now they don't even know which way they're going because they're getting so much misinformation and it's not fair to them. It's not, because then they're stuck wondering, what am I going to do? I don't know. I don't want to disrespect my parents, but you know what I mean? So we're not being fair to our children. We have to make sure that they understand.
Oh my God, I love this one. Here's Yachty. He says, I over communicate with my children so that we both have a full understanding of each other. And that reminds me of communication. Because, if I may say something and thinking that you understand, but that's one-sided. So I need to make sure you understand what I'm saying. So it's important that you communicate to me. It's like you're saying, so what you're saying is this. It's like reciting so that a person can have an understanding. So I definitely, I don't think it's over communicating. I think it's
I don't think
effective.
that's, no.
I think it's just effective communication. So therefore, you have a clear understanding that both. It's just like when I say, we're gonna simple role play, the cat in the hat. So, Igdalia, tell me what you just heard.
From who? From you? The
Yes.
cat in the hat?
Exactly. So I know that you was able to quote me because now I know that we're on the same page. I said the cat in the hat. You said I said the cat in the hat. So now we're on the same page. So I just don't believe it's over communicating. I believe it's effective communication, and that helps you to know that your child or whomever you're interacting with understands what you said.
Now, there is a difference between over communicating and being effective in communication. Over communicating for me is, all right, I know this individual who at a young age would tell their kids every single detail about their personal life. And it's like, whoa, back it up a second.
No boundaries?
No, exactly. There are no boundaries. That's where they're over communicating, right? So that's an example of that person is completely over communicating, not trying to be an effective communicator. But this individual who commented, that's what they're doing is effective communication with their children, because now if the child has questions, they can ask. And if there is a question that maybe you were expecting them to ask and they didn't, then you can find a way to let them know. Yeah. Because sometimes we want to make them feel comfortable that they can come to us.
Yes.
We want to make, like I tell my son when he was younger, I was like, look, I'm your mother. I'm not your friend. But if you need a friend to talk to, you can count on me. But just remember, after that, I will be your mother. You know what I mean? Yes. Like, I need him to know that he can come to me if he needs me. And he doesn't have to go running to somebody else and getting the wrong information. Absolutely. Because we need to understand that not everybody who's listening to us is listening because they care and they want to help us. The majority of the time, they're listening to you because they want to either bring it back to somebody else or they want to make sure that they destroy you.
Yes, or gossip or something.
Yeah. Like, okay. Or like you ask them, oh, I'm going through this. And then I always tell them, like if somebody comes to me for advice, I tell them, I am not going to tell you how I would handle it because it's not going to work for you because it's not. But I am going to give you the real response that you are looking for. And I'm not, my response is normally not what you really want to hear. My response is the truth. Yes. My response is, that's it. It's the truth. You may not like it, but I don't know what to tell you. Like a friend of mine, she was telling me about something about her daughter. And we were talking and she kept going and going and going. I'm like, all right, you know what? We were having dinner and I was like, all right, well, not really sure if you're going to continue to talk to me after this conversation, but I need to tell you this. I need to tell you that exactly, right? I need to tell you that what your daughter is doing is what did I tell her? Is learned behavior. So even though you want her to act a certain way and you expect her to respond and do things, the way she's acting is what she learned.
Mhm.
So before you go ahead and judge her because you think that it should be X, Y, and Z, you need to take a step back and really think about it. She's like, oh, yeah, no, I guess you have a point. Yeah, no, I'm not going to cover it up. I'm not going to make you feel better if this is what you want to hear. No, this is the truth and that's it. That's it.
Mhm.
I'm that friend that you do not want to ask unless you don't, you know what I mean? Like, I'm
You
not going to
prepared to
sugarcoat
get
it.
the business, the
Exactly. I'm going
truth.
to tell you exactly what I'm thinking, how I'm thinking, and that's it. It's up to you. Because I'm not here to make friends. I'm not here to keep you around. No, I'm here for you to do better in your life because we're not always going to be here. Like, we're all for the seasons and your season in your life. Well, what? Guess
Mhm.
what? If I'm here for one season, I'm going to make sure that you get exactly what you need to hear because I don't know if somebody else is going to tell you the truth. So I will
Yes.
be that person to tell you the truth. You like it? You don't like it? I'm sorry, but it is what it is.
Yes. And one of the things I'm going to address two things, and that is those mesh relationships where they don't establish boundaries. So what happens is you have parents who are engaging, having conversation with their children as though they're peers. And
Mm-hmm.
then what happens is when the child may say something out of pocket because you gave them that familiarity that they can say anything and then they may offend you, you decide to retaliate and say something. And that's again poor communication because now the child didn't understand the why. Like, why are you acting this way when we've been engaging like this? Because you never established boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the communication is, I'm like you said earlier, if you need someone to talk to, as a parent, I'm there, but I'm still your parent. So when you
Mm-hmm.
establish those boundaries, you don't have those mesh relationships, and because sometimes they end up going back. I remember one particular, I was doing a family session, right, and the parent was saying that their child talked to them any kind of way, but I observed their interaction because you saw it from the beginning when he
Mm-hmm.
first came in, the backwards and forward, and I'm like, and I remember asking the child to step out, and I'm like, is that your boyfriend or something? No, that's my son. Well, the name calling and the disrespect and the interaction, it appears that y'all are peers.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, this is something that's not new. This has been going on a long time because you, as a parent, never established boundaries and you didn't communicate to establish like this is not what something parent and children do. And so those are the things. And so another thing when you were talking about this is why ethics in profession are required, and in relationships and friendships, there's not like an ethics where you have an obligation to be. You sometimes when you're friends, you don't want to hurt their feelings, you don't want to say things, but when you have that mentality of being ethical,
Mm-hmm.
you can tell them what they need to hear, not always what they want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I say that part of you, maybe your personality, but also as a life coach, you have to be able to be ethical. And so a lot of times people have friends and associates and family members who they go to for advice, but I'm not sitting there saying a friend
Mm-hmm.
or a family member can't be a great person to go to. But in a lot of cases, it's the relationship is so personal, they concern themselves about your feelings and they may not say something that's in your best interest and may say something that you want to hear versus that professional who has an obligation to be ethical and professional. So therefore you can get the best service or treatment that's help you move to the next level. And so I wanted to address that with you because I like your insight again. Again, when your friends obviously have a person who's they can go to and knowing that
Mm-hmm.
when they come to you, they already have to psychologically prepare themselves to get the business and get the truth. Not what they want to hear, but what's in their best interest.
Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, sometimes we have to be careful what we say because we get to a point where we kind of see a person's mindset, where their mind is at the moment. And if we feel and we know that they're on the borderline of doing something they shouldn't, we're there to bring them back. We're not there to like scare them to jump. We have to be careful. And again, one of the things that I do is I'm a friendly person. Maybe some people think I'm not, but anyways, I'm always smiling, right? Or if I see a stranger, I'll smile and say hi. And I remember my son would be like, "Mom, do you know this person?" I was like, "I have no idea who they are. Why are you talking to them like that? You make it seem like you've known them like for all your life." And I'm like, you know what, maybe nobody has ever said hi to them, or nobody has ever, acknowledged their existence. I'm like, what if today was a day that they decided, you know what, I'm going to check out today because nobody has noticed that I'm here. Well, guess what? If I'm that person that's going to keep you from checking out, I'm going to be that person, because you never know. Maybe they don't get the attention that they need. Maybe they need to know that they're loved, whether it's not a romantic love. It's a love like, I know you exist and I see you. Mm. And it's, people need that, because you don't know what's going on behind those closed doors. You don't know the pain that they're suffering. You don't even know if they're by themselves. You don't know what their mindset was when they woke up this morning. We never know. But my thing is, I'm not going to add to that pile of destruction or negativity. I am going to be that light that they've been looking for to get back on track.
Okay.
Because we all need that. We all, because sometimes we see people and you hear them and they're complaining and you're just like, oh my God, I don't want to hear them complaining. But it's like, you know what? That could be complaining for you, but to them, they're venting. Or maybe they don't have anybody to talk to.
Yeah.
They really need to get it off their chest so they can function. Because sometimes the support a person needs isn't a monetary support. It's just a listening. It's just somebody there to listen with no judgment.
Yeah. I'm glad you say that. And as a person who's been a psychotherapist for years, I have to address something because there's a thin line. What I'm listening to is a thin line between people who have codependency issues, self-esteem issues, and in reality, it may be needed, but sometimes the reality, you're not going to get it from people. So if you're not aware of your lack of self-love, that's why self-love is so important. But also, if you don't have it, this is the one thing about investing in yourself, because you're not going to always have people out there to give you a call. You may not have friends. You may be antisocial. You may not just have it, and you're not going to always get someone to tell you they love you. But the thing is, invest in yourself, reading, and also going to a therapist or a life coach, so you can be in that space so they can give you the skills to understand how to cope when you don't have those people. Because you're not, unfortunate, it's the reality, you're not going to always have, even though we may need, because again, the soul needs affection, but sometimes people just don't get it. And it's countless people out there who haven't had the touch of another human being for years, and so although the soul craves for affection, they may not ever get someone give them affection or tell them. And sometimes the benefit of going to see a life coach or seeing a therapist is to help them navigate through life, although they may not have those things that they may desire and want. Okay. Yeah. So listen, I would like for you to respond to that, but right now we're going to do a station identification and we'll be right back. Okay. Suave afternoon, Suave afternoon, Suave afternoon. This is Brother Suave, your mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening on-air personality, life coach, psychotherapist, author, and creator. So it is so many benefits to being proactive. I remember during the recession, I would hear people saying, listen, I need a job. And they wouldn't hire people who need it. And the person, they hired a person who had a job and they applied for another job as opposed to, I don't have a job. And
that's the time to look for a job is when you already have one.
Yes. And again, Brother Frederick was saying this, I try not to get so caught up on religious philosophy and how spiritual are, but a foundation is so important because it gives you some morals and values. No matter if you're a Muslim, a Catholic, a Jehovah's Witness, or a Christian, or a Baptist, or whatever, you have to have respect. You can't do that. You can't do that stuff. You know, and so we teach them emotional intelligence, teach them how to think about things before they react. Can't be impulsive. These are some of the learned behaviors as you listen. Just remember, great minds reach great places. I love you. I mean it. Bye-bye.
Tune in and stream live now. Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, the podcast, is now being broadcast on NPN Voice. NPN Voice can be found on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, SoundCloud, and now on Audible and Amazon Music, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, the podcast, now on NPN Voice. NPN Voice. Got voice. You heard?
Back with Social Therapy, Dr. Brother Suave and our very special guest, Miss Igdalia Medina, as we continue to discuss our dialogue and being able to have your breakthrough and how successful you can become. So, did you want to comment on or respond to the comment I just made in terms of identifying that sometimes you may not always get what you need, but that's why it's so important to invest in ourselves. Mm-hmm. And because again, I tell people, man, listen, you know, people always say, well, there is no such thing as a book on parenting. Millions of books on parenting, you know, you know what I'm saying? And so a lot of times it's resources out there. So sometimes it's just investing in yourself. I mean, and when you really invest in yourself, I'm telling you, you see the difference. And I think a lot of times people don't want to spend the money, invest in themselves, but invest in self really, really makes a difference in your life. You remember the Circle of Champions? Remember it was so many people and how we all connected. And these people, like you hear the stories, they weren't doing certain things. And when they start connecting, they start taking these classes. They start getting life coaching certs. And then some of them start doing a whole bunch of things, but they invested in themselves and their lives changed. And sometimes, you know, you have to sometimes invest in yourself and allow a professional to give you some non-biased insight.
And that's the thing. We have to remind people that it's okay to take care of themselves. It's okay to ask for help. And what's not okay is that we forget about ourselves and we lose ourselves. So we have to stay focused. And again, you know, we did the Circle of Champions, and everybody, once they figured out what their why and their purpose was, that's when they were able to take that step and be like, yep, this is it. This is it. This is it.
Yes.
This is what I need to do. And they could have figured out their why and then figured out like, oh my gosh, like this is my why. And I've been doing this for so long.
Yes.
And that's okay because we're always learning. And that's the thing. We always learn. We just can't, no matter how bad a situation is. Sometimes we may not see the light right away.
Yeah.
But we have to keep pushing forward. And then when we get there, we're going to be like, oh, I can't believe all these mistakes I've made. I can't believe this. And I've done it several times. But then I look back and then it's kind of like, okay, well, I did this and I did that. But you know what? This happened. And I had to do this way because it prevented me from doing X, Y, and Z. We can't base it on what other people are doing because your situation is not my situation. And we can be in the same place doing the same exact thing. You're going to do it one way and I am going to do it another way because our minds are different. We have different perspectives. We have different desires. We have different purposes. We're not going to be exactly the same. We might have similarities, but that's not That's not it. It's not the final decision. Like, I have to do it your way or you have to do it my way. Every situation we learn from, and we say, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. This works for you, that doesn't work for me. And
Yes.
there are times like when we go through certain things in life, and we have coping skills. Some coping skills do not work for certain people, and that's
Mhm.
okay. But I make sure to tell people, like, look, this is what I learned. This did not work out for me, but
Yeah.
maybe it works for you. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because just because it didn't work for me, it does not mean that it's not going to work for the other person.
Absolutely. And this is why, as a psychotherapist, we have individual treatment plans.
Mhm.
It's catered for you, your needs, what works for you, and then we revisit it after 90 days and say, okay, and then go like, okay, well, this was effective, or this wasn't ineffective. We may have to make some modifications,
Mhm.
but again, there's no uh, cure all. One thing fits everybody.
Mhm.
One size fits all. It has to be individualized, and certain things may work for you, may not work for me, and things
Mhm.
work for me may not work for me. But the thing that works for everybody is putting the effort in.
Mhm.
Putting the effort in. Like I always say, potential without initiative is nothing but a conversation with yourself and others and doing absolutely nothing. If you got the potential, you have to take the initiative. You got to put the effort and do something. This is how putting in effort and having breakthroughs allow you to become a better version of yourself. But you just got to put the work in.
Mhm. It's not
So
easy, but it's worth it.
I'm sorry.
I said it's not easy, but it's worth it.
Yes.
Everybody wants to do things that are easy. Nobody wants to put in the work. But that's when you really see the results. That's when you really appreciate things. It's when you put in the work.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because again, when I told you about parenting and communication, because this is what I hear,
Hmm.
because every person had parents, mother or father. It may not have been necessarily, it could have not been in their life or could, but everyone was born from someone else. So each time we have something like you said, a why, and I think parents need to understand why it is so important to communicate. It is so important to become the best parent you can because it improves every generation.
Hmm.
When you start being mindful, self-awareness, and communicating, that child learns how to communicate. So you're talking about 3 and 4 generations of effective communication. By the time your child, they understand certain things, and we evolve.
Hmm.
But we don't need to be evolving the counterproductive way. We need to be evolving and saying, yes, I recall this. And just being transparent, I remember I had a book. It was about sex and the body and the biology of it and on hormones and everything. I think I was I'm not for sure if I was 10 years old, but I remember my dad got me and he explained so many different things to me. And the weird thing is this, because you remember I said we evolve.
Hmm.
Well, my son developed early. And I think I was about 10, but my son happened to hit puberty at 8 years old. So he started going through these emotional and start getting hair all. I'm like, well, you 8 years old. What the heck? But the thing is, when I started seeing that and start paying attention,
Yeah.
I had to have that conversation with him
Hmm.
because his body was developing and changing. He was just saying, and I had to talk, I had to explain to him why I was doing this because he was being emotional, he was going, and he was hitting puberty so early. So I had to, as a parent, I had to effectively communicate, explain to him why I was doing it. Although he was young, I still had to do it. And I
Hmm.
continued that throughout his developing over the years. So about time he became 14, you're talking about 6 years of experience of
Hmm.
understanding this, and each age he grew, he was developing and having a better understanding of what I was trying to emphasize on him about his body and how he would change. But again, that's the parenting component, but it's also the communication. And so again, we evolve, and it's just so important that we communicate. Um, and so I really, really really love your communication style, your transparency, your ability to hold your friends and associates and clients accountable.
Hmm.
They know you don't play. So is it anything that you would like to share in regards of how they can get your services? It could be in photography, it could be in services, in terms of coaching or anything, and how that they can contact you and anything. Because I would like them to get in contact with you, because I know being an MMA photographer, you probably do other photography, and sometimes you may want some headshots.
Yeah. They can find me through Instagram, through their fight story. They can just search my name for either Instagram or Facebook or
Okay. Now, what was that? Your fight story?
their fight story.
Oh, their fight story.
Because we all have a story and we
Yes.
all have a reason why we're fighting. And it's not, and it works because it's in the combat sports field.
Mm-hmm.
But even that, people go into martial arts for a reason. There is a reason. I started my martial arts career because something happened in my life and I wanted to take control. And I push people and I, help them and guide them and let them know. But I also have to take a step back because I'm a little too pushy with that. But it's like, I just want everybody to be safe and protected. You know what I mean? But then it's just like, you really got to take a step back because not everybody's for it. But it's important for everybody to be safe. So I do their fight story because we all have a reason why we are here and what pushes us to fight. That's our purpose. Our why is our fight.
Okay. So at EIR fight story, correct?
Yes.
All right. And speaking of fighting, you got to spar one day. I'm telling you.
I don't like getting hit in the face. Okay, that's the first thing. I'm good with stand up, but I don't like getting hit in the face.
Oh, we do some groundwork. See where your groundwork at.
It's pretty good. I'm rusty, but I am pretty good. I'm pretty good on the ground. I'm really good with my arm bars, with my omoplatas.
Okay.
Only because people keep telling me you shouldn't be doing those or they're not that easy to. So I'm like, okay, you're gonna tell me nope. I'm gonna show you I can do it.
Yes.
And then that's probably how I messed up my shoulders and stuff, but that's another reason.
Yes, because it's funny. A fight story that I have is after we had won the national championship. It's almost like how football players in the league, they be having a great season, and then the next season they get cut because they're not good enough. So like me, I'm like, I'm so sorry now, and I'm like, it's time to quit. It's so funny. It was so funny. It was like, it's time to quit because I done lost the skills over the summer or something. Like, when to quit. Them boxers, sometimes they don't know when to quit.
Yeah.
Their brain, they still got it. But then, that's one of the things, I'm not going to even talk about it. But I look at some of my boxing champions and heroes. I'm like, I didn't want to see that last fight. You should have quit. Well, none of us would have had to experience our heroes getting knocked out second or third round or quitting, Quit early. Quit as a champion. Quit when you're on top. Don't go out.
They're not quitting. They just need to retire.
Yeah. Stop fighting. You're having the 20th ranked person beating the world champion who was a Hall of Famer. That shouldn't happen. He should never got in the ring with you.
How do you really feel about all this?
Huh?
I said, how do you really feel?
Yes, so listen, it was wonderful. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
And listen, as Suave amazing as you are, you are a person of strength. And I just thank you because you're inspiration to others to tell them, you can always have like the comeback of the life award, because you have to sometimes understand your why.
Mm-hmm.
So, listen, this has been Dr. Brother Suave, my very special guest, Ms. Igdalia Medina. Listen, just continue to strive, continue to be the best version of yourself. And just remember, great minds reach great places. I love you. I mean it. Bye-bye. Suave afternoon, Suave afternoon, Suave afternoon. This is Brother Suave, your mind-blowing, thought-provoking, and eye-opening on-air personality, life coach, psychotherapist, author, and creator. it is so many benefits to being proactive. I remember during the recession, I would hear people saying, listen, I need a job. And they wouldn't hire people who need it. And the person, they hired a person who had a job and they applied for another job as opposed to I don't have a job. And
That's time to look for a job is when you already have one.
Yes. And again, Brother Frederick was saying this, I try not to get so caught up on religious philosophy and how spiritual are, but a foundation is so important because it gives you some morals and values, no matter if you're Muslim, a Catholic, or a Jehovah's Witness, or a Christian, or a Baptist, or whatever. You have to have respect. You can't do that. You can't do that stuff. And so we teach them emotional intelligence, teach them how to think about things before they react. Can't be impulsive. These are some of the learned behaviors as young. And just remember, great minds reach great places. I love you. I mean it. Bye-bye.
Tune in and stream live now. Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, the podcast, is now being broadcast on NPN Voice. NPN Voice can be found on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, SoundCloud, and now on Audible and Amazon Music, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. Social Therapy with Dr. Brother Suave, the podcast, now on NPN Voice. NPN Voice. Got voice. You heard? Programs like this are made possible by Neighborhood Planet Broadcasting Systems, Neighborhood Planet Network, iBlisters Digital Media Creative, and from contributions to NPN TV from viewers